Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Nazrani Voice. We're here today with two lovely guests who will introduce themselves in just a second. But the purpose of some of these conversations is to really focus on vocations, discernment, particularly dating and marriage. And so we have two wonderful guests who are going to hopefully help us out with some of that today. I'm going to let you guys introduce yourself. Joan, Chip, and then Jeslyn.
Yeah, so my name is Jomy Methipara. Grew up in Chicago, born and raised, and I've been living out here in Virginia for the last 15 years. Married to my lovely wife. We have 4 kids. Good.
I'm Jeslyn and Methipara. I grew up in the Virginia area, and then when I started college, my parents moved to Atlanta, and so I am somewhat known for being in Atlanta, but I actually grew up in Virginia. And then I moved back to Virginia once we got married, so we've been here 9 years together.
Oh, I didn't know you were from Virginia originally.
Mm-hmm.
I've always, in my head, I have also assumed that you were just born and raised Atlanta through and through. Okay.
Yeah, that's when I came into the Syrian of our churches in Atlanta.
Okay, nice. So you both have been living in other places before coming to Virginia. So I want to ask, and this is gonna be a tough question for you: Chicago or Virginia?
They're very different.
Okay.
So growing up in Chicago, I never thought I'd leave Chicago. My family, everything was kind of there for me. But, Virginia, D.C., DMV, right? It has a different vibe, and it's really hard to compare the two. And they're just unique. They're both very unique, and they have different, benefits and advantages. So,
And what's one thing you like a lot about Chicago? One thing you maybe miss about Chicago, and one thing you love about being here in the DMV?
Yeah, I mean, friends and family in Chicago. The food scene in Chicago is awesome. The sports scene in Chicago are awesome. And then here, the weather's tough, but you go the thick skin. Here in DC, the capital's here, and so there's a lot of museums and monuments and such. And so, there's certain food scenes. Not all the foods are good here, but there's a couple of different kinds that are good. And so. Just the people and the culture is it's different. It's just it's a little bit more political, in the air, right? And that just lends itself to just kind of a different environment.
Oh, yes, okay. Same question to you. So Atlanta or Virginia?
So I would say Atlanta and Virginia are very similar.
Okay.
Weather-wise, are very similar. Ideals, values, all that is pretty similar. So I don't think there's too much of a comparison. A lot of Virginians moved to Georgia. A lot of Georgians moved back to Virginia. So.
And you did both.
I did both.
Yeah, and I also say that there's a lot of hiking trails and such here in Virginia, and then you get into West Virginia, and so the outdoors is pretty cool.
Wow. Okay, yeah, I've never been able to do that, but that's like one of my dreams because it's what the Appalachian Trail runs through. Is that West Virginia?
That goes through Pennsylvania.
No, the Appalachian Trail here as well, but you can typically get the Shenandoah Valley. There's a lot of good trails. Old Rag is one.
Nice. So you talked about growing up in Chicago. What was that like? I mean, were you there when the cathedral was founded, or at what point did you start getting involved in the community there, or were you involved in the community?
Yeah, I mean, growing up, my family did not go to Cyril.
Mm-hmm.
We started going to Cyril when I was in high school, so this is 90s.
Mm-hmm.
Then I went off to college and didn't go to Cyril other than Christmas and Easter.
Mm-hmm.
And then after I graduated college, this is in early 2000s, I started going. Well, I stayed away for about a year, and then some friends kind of pulled me back, and I started going regularly. And that was I guess the diocese was established in 2001, so it was soon after that.
Mm-hmm.
And then the cathedral was built in 2008.
Yeah.
So I was there during. I was part of the initial planning of the of the cathedral and the design and so on. And so,
And so, what was that community like early on? Was it? I guess did the community have a certain vibe? Is it the same community that the cathedral is now, or have you seen it change?
To describe the community in the cathedral like Chicago is very difficult. It's a challenge that every cathedral has. It's just too big.
Yeah.
And the pastoral care that is provided is not great because it's so big.
Yeah.
The priest parishioner ratio is just extremely high, and so when you talk about like the culture in the cathedral over the course of time, gosh, I probably wouldn't be the right person to ask.
Yeah.
But things change so much, and it's so big.
Yeah.
When you talk about the cathedral these days, people tell me there's about 350 families that are very active and probably shape a lot of the culture and activity in the church. But then there's well over 2,000 families in the greater Chicagoland area, right? So, it's kind of hard to pinpoint a culture. I remember when I was in the cathedral, as a young adult, it was always kind of a struggle in the sense that, my heart was always towards youth ministry and knowing people and building relationships. And I struggled with the fact that every Sunday I come to church and there would be a face that I didn't recognize or, a name I didn't know, right? Whereas here at St. Jude, you come here long enough, you know everybody.
Yeah.
At least it's familiar, But whereas in Chicago, there were times I was there for 6, 7, 8 years, and I'd still find people that I didn't know or recognize.
Yeah.
And so then the family feel is challenging because the cathedral is so big.
Yeah, I know with a lot of like smaller missions, especially, everyone knows everyone. Everyone's kind of a familiar face. But I imagine as you grow, it gets a little bit more difficult to do that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and then for you, going from Virginia then to Atlanta, you said Atlanta was maybe like where you got more introduced into Ciro. What's the community in Atlanta like? I've never had the chance to visit as of recording this. So.
Atlanta's beautiful for rain. So when I moved there in 2004 is when my parents moved there. I came back after college 2008. So that's when I was really home at the parish. And at that time it was a mission. They became a parish a little bit later, but it was kind of like a rude awakening for me because I did grow up around Malayali people. When I was in Virginia, there were only 3 families. We had a regular prayer group, but my parents taught English at home. I never spoke Malayalam until I moved to Georgia. And then I got to Georgia, and I was going to the grocery store, and I heard people speaking the same language as the parents, and I was like, "What is this? I can't believe there are other people who speak this secret language." And so when I started going to Ciro Milbar Urbana a little bit more regularly, I had been raised in the Latin church my whole life. Went to a campus ministry at my college and was really involved with that. And my parents were urging me to come to Ciro Milbar Urbana. It was all in Malayalam at the time. And I was like, I don't want to come here. I don't understand anything. I really love the Eucharistic liturgy, but I don't understand what's going on in this church. So for me, it was a little bit of a struggle, but it's also my redemption. Was how I learned Malayalam was through the liturgy. So it was a little bit of an awakening. I realized there are other people from Kerala, like my parents, that spoke Malayalam. And then I kind of learned how to assimilate into the community, right? Like I was still one of the oldest people, so there are very few people my age. So I was always a cheat for everybody else. But, I learned to appreciate our heritage, our faith heritage, through the Atlanta church.
Yeah, so you both shared a little bit that you got involved kind of looks like after college or like in that college area. Like, what was like jumping in? You shared a little bit, right, about being in Chicago and there's always new faces and things with the same situation in Atlanta?
No, I think for us, it was a smaller mission. So we all knew each other. We kind of grew up together. I think as many missions starting out as a small group, right?
Mm-hmm.
People who were very interested in retaining their faith heritage. So they were celebrating Urbana and what they called a kuchapani.
Yeah.
It was a little house. Or somebody bought a house and we had Urbana in this kuchapani. Then they were able to purchase land and expand to a bigger hall. And so then we had Urbana more regularly. So for me, when I think my beginning in Ciro Milbar was being on a national team for DYA. And I remember, being appointed to this team and being in this room and they called my name. I'm like, I don't know anything about being Ciro Milbar. I don't even know what Ciro Milbar means.
Yeah.
So it was humbling. It was very humbling. I remember our first meeting, the 12 of us together, and we're all going around the table introducing ourselves. And I was like, I don't know anything about being Ciro Milbar. So I dubbed myself the Ciro idiot. But I think I was charged to learn more about the faith and learn more about what it meant to be Ciro Milbar and really investigate like what is my own identity within the church.
Yeah, and for you, was it the same kind of faith journey post college into the Ciro Milbar Church of discovering this identity, or?
No, everyone has a different journey.
Yeah.
So I I went down a Protestant angle for a little bit and almost left the church, and then kind of came back, and then um, kind of exploring the Catholic faith from a universal perspective, um, and then from there, kind of discovering the right,
Yeah.
yeah. So it was a process. Yeah.
We talked about your DYA journeys so far, but could you share a little bit about your vocational story? So I know that has some integrations and tie-ins with DYA, but like, how'd you guys meet? Let's start with that.
It wasn't Shavli.com, I'll tell you that.
Okay.
Jomy calls it shady.com.
Okay.
Affectionately.
Okay.
So we met through convention when we were trying to advocate and try to get representatives from every parish. I was visiting many parishes and I couldn't make it to Virginia. I knew that it was my parish that I grew up with. So I called the priest, and the priest, handed the phone over to somebody who was in youth ministry, and he handed the phone off, and eventually I got to Jomy. So I invited Jomy to come to the Atlanta convention. It took a lot of convincing, but we hadn't met yet. So it was a lot of like messaging, hey, have you signed up? And he was like, oh, I don't think I will come. I really don't like crowds. And I was like, are we serious? We had Matt Maher come, and we had Christopher West coming. It's an awesome lineup. Why wouldn't you come? And so I actually finally met him in my living room when he came down for convention. It was like a couple of days before convention, and NT1 was in my living room. We were all just kind of like putting together things before convention started. And so he shows up with a car full of youth with him, and that's how we met, in my living room.
This is the car with Melvin Hutchin in it as well?
Yes.
Okay. Is that your first time meeting Melvin Hutchin as well then?
Yes, that was my first time meeting Melvin Hutchin, yeah.
Nice, okay. This is giving me like a
and
start.
Ashley and Matthew were family friends with Justin, so when Justin was living up here in Virginia, she knew them. So
okay.
So nice. that was the connection,
Okay. So I've heard from her perspective on how you guys first met. I'm very curious. As the one being invited to come to a convention, what was that like for you? Like, what were your first impressions?
Oh, this is a good one.
What was my first impressions?
Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you a story. When I first talked to her, Justin, on the phone, I thought she was a 12-year-old girl because she had a very high pitch. And I'm like, I was active in Chicago, and I had a sense of some of the regional and national people. I knew folks that were doing serving the church in Dallas and Houston. I knew some folks in New York, and Sinoj Purathur, Sony Tavlakara, Jibu Joseph. Those are the OGs in Chicago. They knew these people better than I did, And so Justin was not a name that I was familiar with. So, and it was like,
I had a script, and I was like going off the script. I was like, hi, my name is Jeslyn Thomas. I am from Atlanta, Georgia. I am representative of the Diocesan Youth Apostle. And like, I had the script, and I go through the whole thing, and he's like, how old are you? Literally his first words were, how old are you? I was like, I'm 26.
Okay, and so that's your first impression. How does the impression progress from there?
So then we just kind of built a friendship, right? And then I met her in person, at convention. And
we were doing a lot of messaging back and forth on like, what was it, Google Hangout at the time?
Yeah.
Okay.
Google Chat. Chat.
Wow, that's a throwback right there.
Facebook Messenger to Google Chat.
Yeah.
That was the line of like intimacy at that point.
And then
he was sliding my DMs.
And then post convention, we just built a good friendship, right? And then that turned into a relationship.
Oh. And so when you're, I guess, I know a lot of couples talk about like discernment and things like that. Was there any discerning on your end about like asking her out? Like what did that look like?
Sure. So
I was dropping hidden left and right, and he was not picking up on it.
Yeah, so I mean, while we were friends, we were both dating different people on and off, right? And we would tell
he was dating people on and off. I was not.
Yeah, you were.
No, I was not.
Or you were at least expressing interest.
Talk about yourself first.
We can get to her after.
He was.
Stay in my lane. Stay in my lane. This is a precursor to marriage.
I'll take number one
for those who are not married. So so we just kind of developed a deep friendship, and then Justin took initiative, and she was like, "Hey, I'm interested," and I told her, "Well, I'm in kind of talking to somebody right now, but thank you for the interest, Yeah, it was kind of awkward.
I kind of knew he was talking to somebody. I was trying to set some boundaries
Okay.
because I couldn't read him. He was a little hard to read, so I needed him to tell me that he was talking to somebody so I could have the conversation of
Okay.
let's set some boundaries, because I really liked him. I had liked him for a long time,
Mm-hmm.
but it was getting to the point where it was a little much. I liked him a little too much. I was a little boy crazy.
Mm-hmm.
So sure enough, like a couple weeks later, the relationship ended. It was already kind of the writing was on the wall.
Okay.
Things were about to end, and so then after it ended, a week or two after that, I reached back out to Justin. I'm like, hey, if you're still interested, I'd love to explore this further.
Yeah.
And so then I don't know. We kind of dated for like a month or so.
Mm-hmm.
So I flew
Or we
into
kind of
town.
talked. Yeah,
I
from
flew to town for when
Bishop Allentree,
Cardinal Allentree came to celebrate Qurban at the Basilica.
Mm-hmm.
the National
So he had
Shrine,
a little, like a national eparchial choir at the time. So
Oh wow. Okay.
I flew into town to sing, and he somehow made it to the choir.
So she was the front of the choir. I was in the back of the choir, away from the mics, for the sake of everybody else. And the cathedral, and the National Shrine, which is the biggest Catholic church
Yeah.
in the United States.
Mhm.
Right? Cyril Malabar Mass in there.
Yeah.
So that was pretty... Kurbana, excuse me. So that was pretty momentous.
Yeah.
It was a very awesome situation. So actually, that was the weekend where we had our first series of dates.
Oh, wow.
She flew in for that, and so we're just like, hey, let's hang out and kind of make the most of it. And so,
It was the best set of dates of my life.
That's so sweet.
kinda
Yeah, that's awesome. You're definitely gonna get called out by a couple of the Kodjechins for calling it mass. I'm just letting you know.
my apologies.
Yeah. Okay, so you went on your first couple of dates, and then as you guys are continuing to date, and like I mean, feel free to share.
Oh no, it stopped right there. We went on those first set of dates. I was on like cloud nine. I was like, this is the guy. This is the one.
Mm-hmm.
And he was like, yeah, I don't think this is gonna work out.
Yeah, primarily because she was going to the Caribbean for med school.
Okay.
And my parents wanted me to get married yesterday,
Okay.
So I was like, I just don't see things aligning here. I don't see life converging here, And so,
Because I was like 27, 28 at the time, and
yeah, and I was 33, right?
Mhm.
So I was a little bit older, and
his parents wanted that guy married.
yeah, I mean, I joke like they didn't want me to marry yesterday. They wanted me to marry like 9 months ago, so I could have a kid today. So yeah, I just didn't see like life was converging. So we kind of separated, and we talked. We kind of separated. We didn't really talk too much. Maybe a couple times,
8 months. 8 months of talking. And we would talk every 2 months. Well, I was in med school at the time, and we would start talking again every 2 months. I would hit him up, or he would hit me up, and half of it was watching a Chicago Bulls basketball game while I was supposed to be studying for my med school exams, and the other half of it was just chit chat. And at the end of every call, I'd be like, okay, so why can't this work? Why can't long distance work? And he would be like, let me pray about it. Let me think about it.
Okay.
What does that look like? What did that look like for you, Joey?
It just things weren't converging,
Okay.
So it was like
Practically was not like...
Yeah, there was something discomfort or something unsettled in my heart, and it was difficult to kind of make a relationship out of it when didn't have that clarity.
Yeah, I didn't want to ask, like, so, what role did prayer play as you guys were kind of discerning and, thinking things through about this? So
yeah, so then Lent came around, and I offered my future spouse up in prayer, and I think during Holy Week, and we hadn't really been talking, and
I told him not to contact me anymore. I need to focus on exams.
and
med school priorities.
Med school priorities.
Yep.
Because mess with my head too much.
and she kind of came in through prayer in my heart and my mind, and that was really the confirmation I needed. Like I knew I was attracted to her. I knew she was a great person and a great friend. I just and I knew life wasn't kind of like cookie cutter,
Yeah.
And so, but I was like, all right, Lord, but what is your will? And if this is your will, then I'll do it, right? And so then once I got that confirmation in prayer and just kind of in my heart, then I reached back out and we started dating again, and then went from there.
Here you are. Yeah, there you go.
And for all the young people that want to know what I said and how I reapproached Jeslyn.
Okay.
You know,
This is the best part of the story.
This is after Easter, right?
Mhm.
I jumped in the call, and Justin and I are talking, and then I'm like, I asked her, "Do you still have space in your heart for me?"
Ooh, okay.
And so then she giddily said yes, and then we started dating.
Aw, that's a good line.
Yeah.
Keep that in mind. Keep that in mind. I'm curious. So, from your perspective, what was that like? What role did like prayer? Did you take these? And you shared a little bit during, that in convention you brought a lot of stuff to adoration. Did that help in this case too, like prayer and all of that?
Oh, those
Yeah.
8 months. So we started dating for like a month. We're just kind of talking, just trying to discover whether or not this was for us.
Mhm.
From that point until we actually officially started dating was 8 months of agony for me.
Mhm.
All my bridesmaids know. I chose them as bridesmaids because they were the ones who really accompanied me and walked with me when I was like, I don't understand this. God has put this on my heart. I don't understand.
Mhm.
I'm going to rewind a little bit because when I knew that he was the one for me was during MAC, the first MAC.
Which is the Mid-Atlantic Regional Conference.
Yes,
Okay.
thank you, Johnny.
Mhm.
And he had invited me to come as an NT member to the conference to kind of help him out. And so I came. My sister also came with me. We were around a bonfire, and he and I I was like breaking pieces of chocolate, and he was like breaking like graham crackers. And
Mhm.
I think something about doing ministry with whoever I wanted to marry, I think that was what spoke to me the most. Was I really loved the fact that we're just like something as simple as breaking graham crackers and assembling s'mores. It was like, wow,
Mhm.
this is the one I want to spend my life
Yeah.
with. And even like the weekend prior, we had an NT meeting, and we were at Father Rajiv's house, and we were all around a circle just talking about something. And I noticed that he had this fire for the church. He had this
Mhm.
zeal for the church. I didn't know what I wanted my future life to look like, but I did know that I wanted to be in ministry. I think NT really encouraged that in me.
Mhm.
Seeing what the Roman Catholic Church has done, I just wanted that for our ceremonial bar youth, and I wanted somebody who could work with me in that. And that night, we were all around the table. He was just sitting under this like portrait of Jesus that Rajiv has in his house, and
Mhm.
I was like, yeah, this kind of zeal is what I want to marry. And then
Yeah.
breaking s'mores is what was like, this is a guy.
Yeah. From like the most intense to the most mundane
Yes,
parts of the
exactly.
conversation.
But that's marriage for you, right? Like
Yeah.
marriage is not all these like big things all the time. It's mundane activities,
Mhm.
wrapping up bath time, putting kids to sleep, getting them to school, packing lunches. Like that's a lot of what marriage looks like. Going
Yeah.
to work,
Mhm.
being there for each other, supporting each other. That's
Yeah.
probably your segue, but
I do want to segue into that in a little bit, but in that in between time between when you started formally dating and marriage, what did that relationship look like? I mean, you talked a little bit about like the network that forms in DUI, especially when you're not meeting each other like every other month for events and things like that. What did that relationship look like, especially as it was just starting?
It was very much like a national experience because she was abroad and I was
Mhm.
here, and so we were virtual,
Yeah.
for pretty much all of our dating experience leading into
Mhm.
marriage, And she would
Yeah.
come into town every 3 to 4 months, right? And so
okay.
and when she come into town, then we'd spend time in Atlanta or in Chicago or in DC. She had some friends there,
Mhm.
that she would stay at. So, we found a way to make it work. But
Yeah.
being primarily virtual, really forced us to strengthen our communication skills and, putting faith as as central and primary to our relationship. So it had different challenges, but other fruits that came about.
And how did prayer and faith, did that play a role in that? Was that a big part of kind of your development as a couple as you approached marriage or started thinking about it?
yeah, I think when we started dating round 2, so this is like the end of my first year of or my first semester of med school is when we started dating, and we kind of knew what the road looked like ahead of us. We kind of both knew that in our hearts, without telling each other, that we were probably going to marry each other, but there was still a road of discernment. So our first 6 months were very hard, actually. We had a really hard time learning the ropes of communication. I'm a very talkative person, very expressive. I would ask Jomy, how was your day? And I'd get, fine.
Mm-hmm.
You want to tell me more? So I learned how to ask better questions. I learned how to probe a little bit more and kind of evoke more of a reaction or evoke more of a response from him. But it was a lot of kind of learning how the other spoke, learning how the other wanted to communicate, learning when to back off. So yeah, it was difficult, but I think, even at 6 months, I was like, is this really the person we're supposed to marry? Like, because at that point we had started planning our wedding, we had booked a venue, gone ring shopping, but it was still difficult. But I think we kind of really trusted in the Lord, and a lot of our early conversations were reading marriage articles, like discernment articles for engaged couples. So we kind of started that early. I'd send him articles, we'd read it, discuss it. That was a lot of our talking time every night, was just going through articles.
Yeah. Did you find that community was particularly helpful? Like, I mean, I know in terms of discernment, like having mentors or people who kind of advise you, whether it's family, friends, priests and sisters, whatever it is. Did you have anyone like that, or was it?
Yeah, I mean, I certainly did, and particularly well before I was dating, but it's just in human formation, and preparing for a relationship or for marriage, or growing in virtue, removing vices from my life, right?
Yeah.
I had several mentors here in the area as well as back in Chicago, that were instrumental, right? And invested in me, right? And so, and then those are the people, and some of those people were the people that I looked to when Jeslyn and I were going through challenges, or even during discernment, whether just questions or doubts about, clarity, or, what are some of the things I should be looking for, how I can best evaluate the situation.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's, I couldn't imagine doing it by myself. I know when I was younger, I probably thought, oh yeah, when I'm ready to get married, then I'll tell everybody. That's kind of the attitude. When I'm ready to get married, once you figure it out, then I'll tell my parents.
Yeah.
And that attitude got flipped upside down in my mid-20s when a friend challenged me. He was just like, if marriage is not just between two people, but between two families, as it is biblically, why wouldn't you tell your parents early?
Yeah.
And so, I wrestled with that, and then I came to grips with that. I'm like, okay, that's what I'm going to do, And so, there were situations where I would tell my parents even before I told the girl, that I'm interested in, So, giving a space for my parents to journey with me, and for me to journey with my parents, right, in the road to dating and marriage, has its joys and has its challenges.
Yeah.
And I certainly understand that journey is different for every person, and for some it's extremely harder than it was for me.
Yeah.
I mean, I had my own challenges, but and I'm not diminishing my challenges, but there are cultural expectations, or even religious expectations that will vary from family to family.
Yeah.
And that can make this journey with your parents, very different from family to family. So, but as a general proposition, it is wise to get your parents involved early and really understand their criteria in a spouse for you, and you understanding or them understanding your criteria, and kind of having a meeting of the minds, and I think there's some pruning there, and there's some clarity that can happen there from both sides, and again, it's not just marriage is not just a union of two people, but it's a union of two families, right? And so being able to start that early, and then building those skills to continue that through the engagement and marriage processes and post-marriage, where it really goes into overdrive. Especially when you get kids, then your parents and your in-laws are all in your business, right? And so then those situations put a spotlight on communication, put a spotlight on a mutual understanding, right? For the sake of the broader family, not just your nuclear family. So dating plays a critical role. Even when you're in and out of relationships and things aren't working, it plays a critical role in the communication skills and the understanding that a child or a young adult has with his or her parent, and vice versa.
Wow, that's really interesting. Yeah, like parents are such a big part of that relationship process, I guess. And I like that advice of getting your parents involved a little bit early.
And while you discern, parents also discern.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And I was telling we have a seminarian in our community here, and I was telling him how I talked to his parents, and kind of drop ideas, because while you're discerning for priesthood, actually they're discerning to embrace your priesthood.
Yeah.
And so it's the same thing in marriage, right? As you're discerning for marriage, your parents are embracing this opportunity that you might get married. And well, are you marrying the right person? Are you thinking about the right things? Do you understand what they're thinking? Do they understand what you're thinking? This is really important, and it sets the tone and it sets the foundation for a married life, and kids and so on. So I can't discount. I can't emphasize that enough.
Right. And then for you, was it a similar situation? I mean, you mentioned your bridesmaids and why they became your bridesmaids a little bit. But who were some of the mentors for you as you were discerning?
Ironically, I wouldn't say that my bridesmaids or my peers were my mentors. I would actually say that previous relationships had actually mentored me. The last person I dated before dating Jomy, I dated for 5.5 years. After we ended our relationship, he ended up being a Catholic priest. But that relationship was what set my bar. It set the bar for how I should date. My deal breaker across the board anytime I dated anybody was that they had to be Catholic. I valued the church. I valued the Eucharist. I knew what I wanted for my life, and I knew what I wanted my children to practice and believe in, and I knew who it was rooted in. So that was kind of my deal breaker. But I kind of dated a large gradient of Catholic. Right? I dated a guy who was baptized Catholic, but never went to church after that. I dated a guy who went to church on Sundays, but didn't really have a belief system. But the guy I dated before Jomy, he was fully entrenched in the faith. He had lost his father at a young age. But the way that they lived their faith was so beautiful. And it challenged me to be a holier person. It challenged me to be a better person. And I would say every relationship should look like that. Every person that you encounter, friendship or dating, should make you a better person, or should leave you a holier person or closer to God, right? Every encounter. And even when people encounter us, I would hope that, maybe they walk away with something that makes them a better person, or, draws them closer to the Lord. That's how we should look at dating. If we're looking at dating as the end goal is always marriage, then when we'll keep dating people until we find the right one, right?
Yeah.
But it should always be somebody who makes you better than what you were before that person.
Somebody once said that God is calling, if you're called to marriage, God is calling you to marry one person. Every other person you encounter is preparation for that one person.
Oh, okay.
And so as you're dating and you're meeting people, allow that to prepare you, right? And maybe this dating experience will lead to marriage, but maybe not. But regardless, you will be a better person, right? And so whether it's for that person or it's for a future person, so that's how we should treat the relationships that we're in, as a young adult, grow as a person, and allow that being a stepping stone in preparation for your future spouse.
Have you?
Go ahead.
Oh no, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I think dating is also a discernment of self. You learn a lot about what you can and cannot tolerate when you're dating. Some people always there's a line, I can't stand how loud he chews, or I can't stand how her house is always so messy, or whatever. You learn more about yourself, who you are as a person, and what you can stand for and what you can't tolerate. I think that's edifying. You learn that self-awareness through dating. So it's a good tool.
Yeah, I was going to ask along those lines, have you given advice to couples or people who are, discerning, asking someone out, or just whether they should be dating in general? What are some of the tips that you would give them? Especially, I mean, dating, I feel like constantly changes now, and there's differences in dating then versus now, even 5 years ago and now. What are some of the advice, or tips that you would give to people who are in a relationship, or want to prepare themselves well for a relationship?
Yeah, that's a loaded question. There's a lot of things, but communication, certainly, conflict resolution, certainly. Are you able to do those well? Spiritual compatibility isn't necessary. I mean, it can work, but it's not necessary. Sometimes people think, I'm at this level, and my spouse has to be at this level or higher, and that's not necessarily true. I mean,
Okay.
I think there's a baseline, a base standard. Is a person a practicing Catholic? Is a person going to church on Sundays, right? And then the question is the person open to community? Is the person open to growing, right? And if the answer is yes, then there can be some flexibility on what someone might perceive as compatibility versus can we complement each other in a way where we can lead each other and challenge each other to heaven, right?
Yeah.
And so sometimes sometimes young people set those that are active in their faith, sometimes they set the bar too high unnecessarily, and sometimes, certainly that comes up in conversation. I don't know, what other things do we talk about with couples?
I would say, to a lot of women, I feel like there's this issue with saying yes. And I think, guys will ask out or, muster up the courage to ask the girl out. And the girls are like, I don't want to date him. Even when I first met Jomy, I was like, he's not my type. He's too skinny, too lanky. And I mentally was not willing to say yes. But the Lord kind of stirred something in me. And, learning to kind of let go of the superficial requirements. Some girls are like, oh, I don't want a guy who's too tall. I can't wear heels around him. Look for more of the person. The heels thing's not going to last very long, right? The who he is. Can he do the dishes after I've been watching the kids all day and have cooked dinner and everything else? I'm just deadbeat. He still does the dishes. Does he have the wherewithal to kind of keep persevering in times of difficulty? Those are kind of the big ones. Just being willing and open to people.
Yeah, and from a guy's perspective, do you want this person to be the mother of your children? Does she exhibit the qualities and the characteristics of someone that you would want to entrust your children with? I don't know. I mean, there's a lot of things. I probably can't think of all of them off the top of the head, and certainly on a case by case basis, you kind of go through these things, and I do that from time to time. Guys and girls, particularly. I mean, for me, particularly girls. Justin, probably more particularly guys.
Ironically, they go to the opposite gender. To understand the brain.
To understand the other side.
Yeah.
I think that's what kind of draws young people. Which I experienced that when I was younger too. Right? I prefer going to Chichis than Jertons, to get advice or to get counsel or to get perspective,
Yeah, that's really beautiful, and I like that you're offering some of that advice even now to young people. I think that's a really beautiful thing, and it's part of building up the community, right?
Absolutely.
All for the growth of the kingdom.
The church needs holy marriages, right?
Yeah,
and
exactly.
So one day our kids will grow up, and our kids need Chichis and Jertons too. The only way we can get those is if young people get married, right?
You're investing in the future,
Yes,
in your future too. Yeah, I love that.
Long game.
Yeah. So you've discerned that you want to get married. You get married. What is life like in the Sierra Mulbar Church as a married couple? Especially you've grown up in this diocese. You've been, grown up as high schoolers, college, young adult, now married. Did you feel like there was any major shift when you stepped into a Sierra Mulbar Church as a married couple for the first time? What was that like?
Yes. So perception changes immediately once you're married. You're not an adult in the Sierra Mulbar Church until you're married.
Okay.
I mean, I got married when I was 35. When I was 34, I was a kid in the eyes of many people in the church, right?
But he wasn't trusted as a chaperone because he was a 34-year-old single guy.
And so once you become married, and particularly when you have kids, then you get your badge of honor.
The flip switch is a little bit. And
absolutely.
Yeah.
And that's it's somewhat unfortunate, but in some ways, that's kind of the way the community vets whether you are mature and responsible, because it does take a level of maturity and responsibility to get married.
Yeah.
And so I think that is baked into the culture in Kerala, right? And it's something that here we in the West take for granted, right? And so there's a lot of things like that, that we don't understand until until many years later, right?
Mhm.
And that was certainly that was one realization early in our marriage.
Yeah, it was hard because I think and maybe for a lot of women too is when they get married, they're leaving their home parish and they have to begin a new life somewhere else.
Mhm.
St. Jude was a mission at the time, and we were meeting at a Latin church's cafeteria after Mass or after Kurbana,
Mhm.
and I was sticking by my husband's side. All the teachers were congregating one side, the Teretans were on another side, and I had nobody to talk to for probably a year.
Mhm.
And it was very hard. It was hard to kind of find my way. A new community. There were no youth our age, and we were still kind of in this little silo of not very many people that are like us in our parish community. So it was hard. But the more you get involved in parish life, I think I got involved with choir, helped direct our youth choir and our college choir and adult choir. Then the community gets to know you better, and once they get to know you, then they have more conversations with you. It's kind of like they want to talk to you, but they don't know how to engage with you.
Yeah.
And once they were entrusting their kids to me to teach them music and teach them Kurbana and things like that, then that trust began to build, and then the relationship begins to build. So,
Are there any unique challenges that you've seen maybe consistently across young couples who get married in the Sierra Malabar Church and then are now trying to find or like maybe redefine what their life in the parish looks like?
Any common challenges?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, certainly a challenge of integration is difficult. As young people as they age, they tend to not stick around in the church, right? And so then there's a less of a like-minded community.
Yeah.
And that presents challenges, right? And then for young couples and young families, pastoral care that is responsive to their needs and to the challenges that they're facing in the world that we live in. Those things, are difficult, and so finding a hybrid approach to things. The Latin Church has a role, in the life of Sierra Malabar Catholics in the U.S. People may not want to hear that, but that is the truth. They are a sister church, and so they're like a cousin. Right?
Yeah.
And so you spend time with your cousins, but home parish is your nuclear family, and that's where I'm going to be here every Sunday. But sometimes I hang out with my cousins, and sometimes my cousins enrich me.
Yeah.
And give me different perspective and help me, with my struggles or my challenges in ways different than my nuclear family could.
Yeah.
And so, John Paul II said, "Breathe with both lungs." Right? And so, as Sierra Malabar Catholics here in the U.S., we have a unique way in doing that, and discovering that, and then finding a meaningful way of doing that while enriching your marriage and your family life is a fun journey. And when you can do that and you can figure that out, then God will bless you.
Yeah. And I want to, I know we've been talking for a while, so I definitely want to, be mindful of your time. And I guess like one final question. So you both are involved with Syro families as well. Is that correct? I feel like we could do a whole other episode about Syro families. And after we wrap up, I might ask you about that. But could you briefly share what is the hope of, I guess the goal or if there is a goal of what Syro Families wants to accomplish and what that ministry hopes to do?
Yeah, so Family Apostolate is a ministry of the Sierra Malabar Eparchy of Chicago. It's just like DYA, but I think it's more geared towards families. So for many years, it was strictly confined to just helping with pre-Kina, helping with the March for Life. There was a For Life ministry component of Family Apostolate, but in the last year or so, Melvin Utchin has really helped expand that vision with John Methipara Utchin as well. And we've been working on having marriage enrichment conferences for people who've been married for up to 15 years. We're working on finding ways that can give tools to couples before marriage and after marriage. One of them is finding a mentor couple. Walking with somebody, kind of like what Jomy and I do already, just walking with couples who reach out to us and giving that as a tool for couples when they're having a hard time in their marriage. We can't communicate or, we're not able to conceive, giving them resources to kind of work through those issues. And Also find a way to come back to church. I think Family Pasta is very beautiful because it gives people a tool to evangelize. We see a lot of people within our churches, but there are a lot of people who aren't coming to our church. Whether they're in our cubicle next door to us, they could be your next door neighbor, they could be some that we went to CCD with many years ago. There are a lot of people we could bring to Christ's table, and that's the hope of Family Apostolate, to reach out to anybody who's married and even preparing for marriage and help them to find a more Christ-centered lifestyle.
That's really beautiful. And again, we could do a whole episode about this, but I love that so many of the things that you just mentioned are things that you've already shared that you're already doing now as a married couple, and parts of that ministry have helped you maybe in a more informal way throughout your discernment process as well. I do want to wrap up with just kind of a classic wrap up question, which is if you could share, if you had one piece of advice, like one takeaway you wanted people who are, again, in that place of discerning or they're already married, what would that be? Like, what would be the one thing that you want to tell people who are listening to this about, the Syro Malabar Church and, dating in that context, being married in that context? It's very open-ended, and that's somewhat intentional.
You want to go first?
I would say one thing that I wish I had done and that Jomy did do was we all live in a family, and that's only one expression of what family life could look like. I invite anybody, engaged, not engaged, dating, discerning, to visit other families and see what their family life looks like from sunrise to sunset. How do the parents parent? How do the parents argue? How do the kids interact with their parents? What does discipline look like? Those are different things that we have to think about when we prepare for marriage and have a family, or even maybe we don't get blessed with children. What would that look like? How can I be a mother or a father in the absence of children? Because there is a motherhood and a fatherhood in family life, even when there are no children. So I think visiting with different families, kind of having a broader perspective of what family life could look like, helps you to analyze and figure out what you want for yourself. Kind of like dating different families, but for sake of knowing what your own family would want to look like.
Yeah, that's a great answer. And I'll just piggyback off it and say that, most young people, their understanding of marriage and family life are exclusive to their nuclear family for good and for worse. So there is no perfect family. And so every person naturally has wounds or fears or doubts that have stemmed from their nuclear experience of marriage and family life.
Family of origin is what that term is used now.
Okay, yeah.
And so it is wise for young people to diversify that experience and spend time with other young couples and have these experiences of a family life and, the different challenges that, and, find couples that you trust, holy couples, and those that are selfless and, and giving of themselves and,
a marriage that you aspire to.
Yeah.
And then when you have a handful of those experiences, then you're able to better discern what a holy marriage looks like. And then you're able to better address the wounds or your insecurities or your fears. Because if you are just strictly focused on this nuclear experience, it's limited. And again, most young adults are fixed in that. And I was fixed in that for 30 years of my life. And then from about 30 to 35, I started spending time with other families. I'm like, wow. Yeah. And, some people have cousins that are young couples in their family that they could spend time with. Some people don't. Some people may not even be comfortable doing it from a familial setting, So you're finding a young couple in the church community that you respect. That you trust, that you can be vulnerable with, and that you can really learn from and grow with. And get perspective on marriage and family life, and not only can you be blessed as a young adult from that experience, but you can also be a blessing to them. Because oftentimes young couples with young kids, they're struggling, and they could use a little bit of a break for a date night. Baby therapy is real for young adults. You got
a lot of PhD students come over to our house for baby therapy when they miss exams.
They're going through a lot of stress at work or school, and they spend a couple hours with kids, and you are required to be selfless with kids. You cannot be selfish with kids. There's no space for that, right? And so that is therapeutic. That is baby therapy, right? And so, so for young people to understand, and experience these different generational, situational, familial experiences,
Yeah.
aids in their discernment. And again, that was actually that was the best answer that Justin gave, and I'm not going to give another one. I'm just going to piggyback off of it because I think that's what a lot of young people are missing. And I was fortunate to get it later on, but had I gotten earlier, that probably would have prepared me for marriage or a relationship much earlier in life.
Yeah.
And helped me grow in virtue and help me understand the value of it. Help me recognize the primacy of faith much earlier in life, right? And so,
I think if we look at marriage as like the lens or like the process by which we get to heaven, like he edifies me, he points out my mistakes so that I can become a better person, and it challenges me to grow as a mother, as a wife, as a daughter. I think that's the beauty of marriage, is that it's a constantly edifying process, and you grow as two people, and unless you're journeying together, you guys can kind of diverge paths, right? If I don't follow up with him and learn from him, like what's going on at work, keep up with them, then it's easy for us to see divorce as an option. Well, when we got engaged, we kind of told each other the D word is not in our dictionary. D word being divorce, right? So we've kind of practiced communication a lot, and I think that's a valuable skill, and just kind of learning how to walk with each other and letting marriage be our path to heaven.
Wow. I think that's a beautiful place to wrap up. But Jeslyn, Chechi, thank you so much for speaking and just sharing your beautiful story, the advice that you gave. I know you guys are very involved still in this parish, St. Jude, with the diocese and everything. So I want to thank you all for the work that you've done, the work you're continuing to do, and will probably continue to do as well. We'll keep you in our prayers. Thank you all for watching. We'll see you in the next episode.
Yeah, and thank you for the opportunity. And
thanks for having us.
Hopefully someone is blessed by some of the words that we were all speaking together.
I'm sure they will be. Awesome.
God bless.
Cool. All right.